Gospel according to John. Jesus went up to the Mount of Olives. But early in the morning he arrived again in the temple area, and all the people started coming to him, and he sat down and taught them. Then the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery and made her stand in the middle. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commands us to stone such women. So what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they could have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and began to write on the ground with his finger. But when they continued asking him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again he bent down and wrote on the ground. And in response, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. So he was left alone with the woman before him. Then Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She replied, "No one, sir." Then Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, do not sin anymore." The Gospel of the Lord. A couple of weeks ago, the Gospel from John on Sunday had that famous line, John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son." And I used that passage as sort of the jumping off point to talk about who is God. And how do we know who God is? And it's an important question because who we think God is how we're going to relate to God. And probably how we relate to each other. And people have some pretty messed up ideas about God. And they can all be pretty religious people. Headhunters. The ancient Incas who ripped out the hearts of people and offered human sacrifice. Very religious. Maybe more religious than you and I. Because they were doing what they thought God wanted them to do. So when you have a messed up idea who God is, your life is messed up and you do a lot of bad things maybe. So how do we know who God is? I mean, the world is full of talking heads. In fact, I begin to wonder whether that's what's all they're out there is talking heads. People like to opinionate, kind of like the scribes and Pharisees. How do we find out who God is? Well, why don't we go to the source? Let's go to Jesus. You look at Jesus, and you know who God is because Jesus is God. So forget about all that other stuff and all these people that are feeding you stuff. Go right to the Gospels. And what do you see with Jesus? Today's Gospel is a fantastic example. When you see the face of Jesus, you see the face of God. And so today's Gospel, you see a God of mercy. That's why Pope Francis is so great. He really emphasizes mercy, which is really emphasizing God. And then if we understand God as a God of mercy, then we can relate to God that way, and maybe we can relate to each other a little better. God forgives us. Sometimes we think it's hard because we've done evil things. And then we let that like a black cloud hang over our heads. You know, a lot of people that are in their 80s and 90s, they're remembering things that they did when they were 20 and 21. I mean, they're just like blazing in their skull and they can't get rid of it. Well, God forgave it when they were 21. It's gone. God's got a short memory. His memory for sin is short, and his love is everlasting. And then we can maybe be a little less judgmental on everybody else. It seems like the world of Facebook and Twitter is all about being judgmental and holding things against people. Not for a day, not for a week, forever. Isn't that sad? It's like people ripping hearts out of human bodies, top of a temple, and offering it up to God. So anyway, good to reflect on the Gospels and who Jesus is. And boy, does that change how we relate to God and how we relate to each other. Let us stand now and offer these prayers of petition. The ones from Magnificat are very good. They really fit in with the readings. God loves the unjust.